Something a little bit easier for you. So on 12-4, we are dealing with what we call the sum of an infinite geometric series. And there's a formula to follow, and it's the formula that's easier than the formulas that you've had before. Okay? So we're going to sum an infinite geometric series. Now, what does it mean by infinite? Never ends. So remember, geometric is the ones that are multiplied, so that's how they grow, is by multiplication. Then if you think of if it's going to grow, some of those might not be able to do that. And you're right. Some of the ones, you're not going to be able to add all of them together, because if you continue to get higher, how can you add every number in the series if the numbers continue to grow? You're not. Okay? So a sum of an infinite geometric series is only possible when your ratio, or the absolute value of your ratio, is less than 1. If your ratio is less than 1, then you can do it. If your ratio is greater than 1, you cannot. Okay? Does that make sense? So if the R is bigger than 1, you're not allowed to do it. It's not possible. If it's less than 1, then you can. Okay? If it is, the formula looks like this. S sub n equals A1. What's A1 refer to? First term. 1 minus R on the bottom. What's the R stand for? The ratio. That's it. That's how this whole formula works. I'm going to show you a couple of them and how they're going to look. Some of the ones they're going to give you are going to give you the E notation, like the summation notation. And some of them are just going to give you the pattern. So, one of the first ones, if you see this, n equals 1, and then you'll see the sideways 8 on the top. What's the sideways 8 mean again? Infinity, right. So that's how I know it's an infinite one. Then if I had something like 8 right here, and I had 0.8 on the inside, n minus 1. First thing that I need to ask you, or you guys need to figure out, is your R less than 1? Yes. Which one's the R? 0.8. The 0.8. Right. This thing here is in this type of scenario. A1 times R to the n minus 1. 0.8 is less than 1, so yes, you can continue. If it was greater than 1, you'd say not possible and move on. Okay? Does that sound easy enough so far? What's the first term? 8. Good. So in order to figure out my answer, I'm going to have 8 on the top, because that's the first term, 1 minus 0.8 on the bottom.
Where's 0.8 coming from?
0.8 is the ratio. Okay, so the formula says this, Riley. It says A1 over 1 minus R. That's the formula. R stands for ratio. Yep. So, you can do this one of two ways. You can either A, do 1 minus 0.8 to begin with, or B, type it all in your calculator at the same time. It isn't going to matter. If I did 8 divided by 1 minus 0.8, though, and type it in that way, that's wrong. Why is that wrong? It's going to do 8 divided by 1 and then subtract the 0.8 from it. All you'd have to do in order to make this work out the right way is put parentheses around the bottom. If you do 8 divided by 1 minus 0.8 or 8 divided by 0.2, what number do you get? Huh? 40? And you're done. That's what they're going to ask you to do. That's it. What, Reno? The absolute value, since it's the absolute value, it doesn't going to matter if it's positive or negative, because you're looking at whether or not that number is less than 1 itself. So if the ratio is a negative something, is that number itself less than 1? Yeah. Is it a fraction or decimal? That's less than 1? Yeah. If it is, great. You can do it. If it's not, you write not possible. Okay? What do you think? This is all that it is for the first part. So what if they give you something like this instead? if it says 1 minus 3/4 plus 9/16 minus 27/64 plus blah, 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 what's the 3 dots at the end of this thing mean? It keeps on going, right? Good job. So that means the infinite, so I know it's an infinite. I'm also telling you it's a geometric, but what I don't know is if I can actually do this one or not. How do you find the ratio if it's not given to you? Take the second number, which is negative 3/4, and divide it by the first number, which is 1. What's negative 3/4 divided by 1? Negative 3/4. My ratio is negative 3/4. And Reno, this is to piggyback off of your question. I don't care if it's positive or negative because the absolute value gets rid of that part of it. 3/4 itself, is that less than 1? Yeah. If it is, then we can continue. If it's not, we'd write not possible and be done. Okay?
So the ratio has to be.
Yep. Otherwise, Riley, you put not possible. Okay? So what's the first term? 1. 1 minus. What was the ratio that you guys just told me? Negative 3/4. Now, you guys have been pretty good about this all year. When you have 2 negatives in a row like that, what do 2 negatives do? They cancel each other out, making it one big fat. Good. So I end up with 1 over 1 plus 3/4. What's 1 plus 3/4? 1 3/4. You can either leave it as 1 3/4 like that, or write it as 1.75, or write it as 1 or 7/4. Whichever way you want to write it, that is your choice. I'm not that picky. Does that make sense? Is everybody okay with that so far? So 1 3/4, I'm going to write it as 7/4. Now you guys have been really good about this all year. If I have a number divided by a fraction, how do I get rid of that? I multiply by the reciprocal, and the reciprocal of 7/4 is 4/7. And what I do to the bottom, I got to do to the top. This cancels. What's 1 times 4/7? 4/7. Now, for those of you who didn't want to do it that way, could I have taken my calculator and typed 1 divided by 1.75 and got a decimal? And especially when you have the TI calculators, could you then go math frac and put it into a fraction and it will tell you 4/7? It would have. Okay? As evidenced by Kendra's up here, she did that. She took 1 divided by 1.75, got the decimal, then she fracked it, and it gave us 4/7. Same thing. Whichever way is easiest for you, please do it that way. Okay? I'm not that picky. What do you think? This is the majority of what you're going to be asked to do. Can you handle that? All right. What if I give you something like this? First of all, is it infinite?
Yes.
Yeah, because of 3 dots at the end. Jacob, what's the ratio? I'm multiplying by 5. Right, good. In order to get that, like we said earlier, you take the second one divided by the first one. 5 divided by 1 is 5. Awesome. But, can I do this one? No. So this one is not possible because of the fact that our ratio is greater than 1. Because for this particular thing, our numbers are going to continue to climb forever. So are you ever going to be able to add every number? No. So if you have a ratio that's bigger than 1, stop. Put not possible, and you're done. All the ones today are always going to be infinite. Okay? What do you think? So far, so good? Okay, the last thing that is going to happen for you is it's going to say this. Given this repeating decimal, rewrite it as a fraction. So I have 0.2 repeating. Now there's multiple ways of doing it, but the way I'm going to show you is using the equation or the formula that we just talked about. We're going to write it as a fraction. Okay? So I'm going to have this repeater decimal, and we're going to write it as a fraction. So here's how I do that. What number or numbers repeat? The number 2 does. Right? One time, like 2 every time. Right? So on the top, I'm going to put a 2 because that's the number or numbers that repeat. And I'm going to multiply it by how many times does the 2, how many place values does the 2 repeat? Is it like, it goes on infinity, but every one decimal place is the same number, right? Yeah. I'll show you what I mean by that in a second, but one decimal place. So if I'm at one decimal place, I'm at 1/10, which is 0.1. On the bottom, you're going to go 1 minus that 1/10. This is the same thing as A1 over 1 minus R. It's the same type of setup. This number here are both the same, and they are always going to be the same, and that is the number of repeating places. And this right here is going to be the number that repeats. And I'll give you one that has more than, just one repeating number every time here after this. Okay? Here again, I could type this all in my calculator all at one chance, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to take it by steps. I'm going to do a technique I call chunking. So I'm going to do the top different from the bottom. What's 2 times 0.1? 0.2. On the bottom, what's 1 minus 0.1? 0.9. Last time I checked, and I'm pretty sure you guys know this, can you have decimals inside of fractions? No. So what do? Right now I have decimals inside of my fractions. I got to times it by a number so that my decimals go away, right? In this particular case, how many decimal places do I need to move them both over by? Just one decimal place. So that would be like times it by 10. But unofficially, we're just going to move, if we move it 1 over on the bottom, then we got to move it 1 over on the top and vice versa. So if I do that, what's 2 over 9? 2 over 9, does that reduce? No. Guess what? That's your answer. So if you wanted to check it, it's just chemistry. Okay? When you have that like that, if you want to check your answer, take 2 divided by 9. What number do you get? 0.2 repeating, right? Good. I don't know what you mean.
Not if you just keep pushing 2. You just do it a couple more times.
So essentially,
Because I got
yes,
like 1,000 over 5,000. You just push it a couple more times.
I don't know what you're referring to.
I mean, we totally can. Yeah, I definitely got that, so I'm just going to do that.
Okay, so for this one, how many decimal places repeat?
3.
3. So on the top, what numbers are repeating, Riley?
625.
Good. So 625. Now, Riley, to get 3 decimal places over, it's like I would take 1 and move it 1, 2, 3. So how many zeros would I have to have in front of it? 2. Right. So 0.001. And on the bottom, it's 1 minus 0.001. What's 625 times 0.001? Yes, you do. Close. 0.625. Good. What's 1 minus 0.001? 0.999. How many decimal places do I need to move both top and bottom? 3, so it'd be like the same as multiplying by 1,000. And if I do that, I get 625 over 999. Now, the question was, Jenna asked just a little bit ago, can I just put this in my calculator and hit frac and it'll do it for us? And for the most part, some of them, yeah. But then, like Allie said, I tried that and it didn't do it. And then Cody said you got to put more of them in there. And most of the time it will, as long as you put enough. That's the trick. Okay? You're the only class that actually figured that out.
Are you kidding me?
So,
Pretty sure that all you have to do is type it in like every day.
so on page 823, 4 to 30 evens. It's pretty easy. Okay.